Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. Today we're going to be drawing one of my absolute favorite birds. This is called the Western scrub jay. Well, actually, they changed the name just recently, and now they call him the California scrub jay. We have an oak tree in our backyard, and we get so many of these scrub jays, and they are noisy. Can you hear them? So they are so they are waiting for me to go put peanuts in the branches. I put peanuts in the branches. They come down every day. They take those peanuts, they fly off, they hide them in the nooks and crannies of our oak trees. Listen. She's like saying, I'm hungry. Where are my peanuts? And then they eat them later in the winter time when it's cold. Okay, I'm going to go feed those guys so they'll quiet down so I can teach you how to draw our Western California scrub jay.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Let's get ready to do our Western scrub jay or California scrub jay bird. This is a photo of a California scrub jay. I know you might have thought that's called a blue jay, but they're actually, where we live in California, they're called a Western scrub jay or a California scrub jay. They are very different than a blue jay. Now, some of the things you'll notice about this scrub jay is he has a very wide beak. This beak is thick and wide, and that is so that he can break open acorns that fall from the tree. Another thing you'll notice about the scrub jay is that he has a little patch of gray on his back here, and he has a blue necklace right here. See that little blue section of feathers? That they call a necklace. So when we get ready to draw our scrub jay today, we're going to make sure that we give him a patch of gray feathers and a blue necklace around his chest. Let's begin our lesson by first getting a couple items. The first thing you're going to need to get is a piece of paper. Now I'm going to be using the paper that comes out of my printer. That's the paper I'm going to be using today. You're going to need a pencil, an eraser, a Sharpie marker, and something to color with. Now for me, I'm going to be using markers today, but you could also use crayons or colored pencils if you have those. Those would work as well. So pause the video, go ahead and gather these items up and then meet me back here and we'll begin our lesson. Well, welcome back. Let's begin drawing our California scrub jay. So the first thing I want you to notice is that our scrub jay has an oval or round circular body. He's got a long tail and he has a round head and a long, thick pointed beak. His beak is much thicker than a regular bird's beak. Let's get ready to figure out how we're going to draw our scrub jay. So I drew a long body, a long tail, a round head, and a wide beak. The legs are going to be pretty simple. That's just kind of like a number 7. It kind of looks like a sideways number 7, doesn't it? Let's get ready to draw. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the middle of our paper with our finger. And then we're going to take our pencil and make a dot right in the middle. So before we start, I like to find the middle of my paper, make a dot, and around that dot, I'm going to draw a oval, which is like a long circle. And I don't want to make it too big because then I won't have any room for his tail feathers. So I'm going to make just a medium size oval. I can make it bigger if I want to. I could make it smaller if I want to. Just depends on the size you want your bird. You just want to make sure you have enough room for his tail, enough room for his head, and a beak. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add his head right here to the front. So I'm going to come right here and draw a circle that's connected to the oval of his body. Now the next part of our scrub jay is to draw a tail. The tail is going to come from the back here. So I'm going to start by drawing a long line that comes out. And then I'm going to turn it into a tail feather by making another line next to it and then looping it on the end, connecting it. Now I'm going to add a couple more tail feathers the same way by drawing another line and then connecting it, and another line and connecting it. And you can draw as many tail feathers as you would like your scrub jay to have. I'm going to add one more up here that kind of comes down and connects at the end. Now the next part of our scrub jay is to add his beak. Now the beak is going to come here at the front. So the first thing I'm going to draw is the line that separates the top of the beak from the bottom of the beak. It's just going to be a straight line that comes out. So I'm going to come over here to the front of my picture, and I'm going to draw a straight line that comes out. And you want that line fairly long because he needs to have a beak big enough and wide enough for him to crack those acorns. So now I'm going to bring my beak back, and it's going to kind of curve up. And you want to make it a little thicker here and a little bit more pointed here. Now the bottom of the beak is going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go from the end here. It's going to be pointed on the end, and I'm going to bring it back to here. Now that we have drawn the beak, we're going to figure out where to place his eye. So his eye is going to be right here where the space of his beak is. And it's going to be kind of close to the front of the circle. I'm going to draw a large circle. And I'm going to draw a half of a circle. And then a little circle up here for the shiny light in his eye. Now, when we are looking at our scrub jay, you'll also notice he has a patch of gray feathers that comes around his eye. Almost looks like he has a mask on. So let's draw a patch of feathers that comes around his eye and comes back again. See how we did that? Now the next part, we're going to connect his head to his body. So right here is his head, and then we're going to bring it back and connect it to his body. And then we're going to follow the line of the circle here, and we're going to connect it to his body. And now that we've done that, we're going to add a little bit of feathers by making a bumpy line across his neck. Almost looks like he has feathers around his head. Now inside here, we don't need those extra circle lines anymore, so we can erase that with our magic rubber eraser. If you don't have a magic rubber eraser, you could use the end of your pencil. I'm going to get rid of those lines because we don't need those anymore. There we go. Also, here at the front of his beak, you can change the shape of the beak by making a curved line here. And if you want to give him a little smile, you could curve that line up just a little bit. Now the next part of our beautiful scrub jay is to give him a big, long wing. We're going to find the halfway point between the top of his body and the bottom, and we're going to just draw a swooping curve that comes down through his body and all the way back to here. So I'm just going to go from here, I'm going to swoop it around and bring it all the way up. Now I'm going to darken this line right up here because this is the top of his wing. Now inside of his wing, we're going to add that one section of feathers that's gray. Do you see right up here? He's got one little section of these small, short feathers. These are his cap feathers, and we're going to make those gray later. So for now, I'm just going to make a wavy line that comes around and connects. Now these feathers here, his longer feathers, these we'll be making by drawing a straight line that goes from his neck all the way back to the tip, from his neck all the way back to the tip. And we're just going to continue doing that until we have a few long lines. So we've got some short feathers here, and we have some longer feathers here. Now there's that little dot that we used to make the center of our paper. I can erase that. I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to now add his legs. His legs are going to be underneath his tummy here. So let's look at the photo of my scrub jay. So his legs bend like a backwards L. An L goes this way. They bend like a backwards L, or a number 7. You could probably kind of see that number 7 line in there. So to draw his legs, we're going to draw a line that goes back. And by the way, we don't want to draw his legs coming out of his chest. We're going to do it back here toward the back of his body. So I'm going to draw a short line that comes this direction, kind of toward the corner, and then forward. See how that looks kind of like the number 7? I'm going to do another one right next to it here. it around and bring it down. So there's leg number one. And then I'm going to match that same thing and do it again a little bit higher up on his body. So I'm going to draw a short line that comes down and a line that comes forward and a short line that comes down. I'm going to make a little bend right there and a line that comes forward. Now on this leg right here, we're going to add his toes. So what I'm going to do is draw two lines that curve like this. That's one. And then I'm going to draw another one. I'm going to skip a little space right here, two. And then he's going to have his back toe that comes here, three. So you'll see right here, one, then I skipped a little space, two, and then a back toe here. Now let's connect these and so that they make sense. So the first line, we're just going to bring up like this, and we're going to connect it to here. Now, right next to this line, I'm going to start here at the end. I'm going to curve it up and around. See how I did that? I went from the end of his toe up and around. And then from this toe, I'm going to connect it here. So there's his little toes in the front, and here's his little back toe. And I'm going to copy exactly what I did here. I'm going to draw one little toe back. And then from this line here, I'm going to draw one curving line. And then see where this line is? I'm going to skip a space just like I did here. I'm going to skip a little space and make another curving line. I'm going to connect to this line right there. Now here, I'm going to bring it up halfway. I'm going to bring this one up halfway to connect. Now he's going to be standing on a tree branch. So my scrub jays are standing on the tree branches waiting for me to put those peanuts out for them. This is also where they stand and looking for, these are juniper berries. That's another thing that scrub jays like to eat, are those juniper berries. They also like, the nuts that come from my oak tree too. So now I'm going to draw a line right here. See what that little crook between his little part where his leg stops and connects to his foot? I'm just going to draw a line that comes out. And then I'm going to continue it through his feet right here and down this side. And then I'm going to draw another one below it. So this is going to be the branch that he is standing on. And then let's make another branch that comes up here. We're going to bring that branch all the way out till it comes to a point. You can make it go as long as you want. And then let's make a little shorter branch right here. I want to make sure that they come to a point. And then I got a space up here. I could add maybe another branch right here. So now we have our scrub jay drawn. I'm going to make his line of his tummy a little darker right here. And now we're going to go in and use our Sharpie marker. So we're going to take our pencil lines and we're going to trace over those with our Sharpie marker. That way our lines will show up a little bit better. Taking our Sharpie marker, putting the lid on the back, we're going to trace over our Western scrub jay. I'm going to start right here on his beak. And I'm just going to trace that sharp, pointy beak. And then I'm going to trace the top of his head and the bottom of his chin. Now try to draw right alongside of me. Try not to draw ahead, because you might be thinking that you know what to draw next, but I might have some tricks along the way. So just follow along with me. So now we're going to kind of make this wavy line right here. And now we're going to trace his tummy. I'm just going to follow this line along all the way back. And I'm going to stop right here when I get to his tail feathers. And the reason I'm going to stop is I'm noticing that his feathers right here are very fluffy. So maybe I'm going to make these a little bit more fluffy by making some kind of ziggity-zaggity lines right there. Then I'm going to trace his back. And then I'm going to trace his long tail. Now in this photograph, his tail is very skinny, but that's just because you can't see the other feathers. If he was to turn his feathers just slightly, you would see more of his feathers the way that we drew his feathers. So don't worry if your picture looks a little bit different than mine or a little bit different than the photograph. Now I'm just going to trace along and draw a couple lines for these long tail feathers. He uses these long tail feathers to help him balance on the branches. Then I'm going to trace his legs, which is that funny little backwards 7 line. And then let's just trace 1 foot at a time. So I'm going to come around and trace that curvy toe. And then the other curvy toe. I'm going to trace the bottom part of each one of those toes. And this one's going to go all the way back to that back little toe behind. And I'm going to do the same thing on this foot. Now, what happens if you don't like the way your feet turned out? Maybe your feet look different than mine. Don't worry about it. You could cover it up. Later, you could put some pine needles over his feet. See these right here? See all of this parts of the tree? This is a juniper bush, but in my picture, I did some pine needles because they love to sit in the pine trees too. You could put some pine needles over the tree, over the foot later to hide anything you don't like. All right, our next part is this part right up here around his eyes. That's going to be that patch of feathers that's gray. So you can keep it a smooth line the way we drew it with our pencil, or you could make it kind of wibbly wobbly. I'm going to make mine a little bit more wibbly wobbly. And then I'm going to trace the wing. We've got these long feathers here, and then we have those short feathers that are gray right here. So I'm going to first trace my long lines. And then I'm going to trace that wibbly wobbly line that I made. And I'll remember later to color this part of the feathers gray and this part that beautiful blue. Last part is his little eye. So if you look at his eye, he's got a little twinkle in his eye. See that little sparkly light? So that's what I did by drawing that little small circle. That's going to be the part of the eye that I'm not going to color in. So when I trace all my circles of my eye, I'm only going to color the part around that little circle. Don't worry if you fill it in by accident, that's okay. Maybe you want to make your scrub jay have little eyelashes. You could do that if you want to. And then our final part is to draw our tree branch that our scrub jay is sitting on. So I'm just going to trace over those lines. And that little tiny branch off to the side. You might notice that when I'm tracing over my pencil lines, sometimes I don't go exactly on my pencil line, but that is okay. We can fix our picture later by taking our eraser and erasing our pencil lines, and no one will ever see that. Now, if you would like to add a long line that runs through the branch, that looks kind of like the grain in the wood, you can just kind of take your marker and run it along the branch. You'll notice I hopped over the feet when I was doing that. And then, in order to make some pretty pine needles, I'm just going to take my marker, and in a couple places, I'm just going to scratch my marker real quick. So let me do one over here, and I'll show you what I mean. So see how these look like little pine needles? And the way I did that is I set my marker down and I flicked my pen out like this. Kind of like you're making kitty cat whiskers. So I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to flick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to find another place and do them. So this time I'm going to do them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to try it in a couple places over here, maybe right here. And you don't have to do it just 5 times. You could do it more if you'd like to. Now later, we'll go in with our colored markers, and it's going to really look beautiful. All right, we are almost ready to color. We've got one more trick to do, and that is to take our magic rubber eraser and erase our pencil lines. Now, before you start erasing, this paper is going to wrinkle if you scribble hard with your eraser. So we're going to put our hand down like this. I call this the duck's mouth, and we're going to erase only in this little spot right here. If this was a duck saying quack, 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 you only place your eraser right in that little crook of the duck's mouth, and that's where you erase. If you erase right here, you'll notice my paper doesn't wrinkle up. As you're erasing your pencil lines, you're going to move your little duck along the paper, and then you can take your duck and brush those crumbs right onto the floor. When you're all done erasing most of those pencil lines, most of them are going to get covered up by our marker anyway. When you're all done erasing, make sure you've erased all those little marks that you don't want to keep anymore. Then we're going to get ready to start to color our scrub jay. So let's look at the photograph and let's figure out what colors we're going to need. One of the colors we're going to need is blue. Now I see some light blue and dark blue. You might have a light blue and a dark blue marker. If you don't, you can just go straight dark blue. I did mine with just one shade of blue on this picture, but I happened to find an old light blue marker, so I might be using that one today too. The other color we're going to need is gray. Do you have a gray marker? If you don't have a gray marker, you could use a gray crayon. If you don't have a gray marker or a gray crayon, you could color with your pencil because the pencil lead is also gray. You're going to need gray. Now, what other colors do you see in our picture we're going to need? What about this branch? We're going to need something to make our branch. So we've got some brown. And I think that brown marker is sometimes kind of dark. So another trick I like to do is use a lighter color, kind of like the skin color if you have it. If you don't, grab a brown crayon, and you can mix brown crayon with brown marker, and it's going to be wonderful. All right, one more color we're going to need is green for our pine needles. Now, depending upon what markers you have, you might have two different shades of green. So go ahead and gather those up. And if you're not using markers, you're going to use crayons. If you don't have crayons, you can use colored pencils. Anything will work. Let's begin our coloring. First thing we're going to do is figure out where to put our gray on our scrub jay. So the first color we're going to work with is gray. So let's look. I noticed that his beak is gray. So we're going to take our gray marker or crayon, and we're going to color his beak gray first. Now, as I'm coloring, I like to pull my marker nice and slow along the area I'm coloring instead of scribbling back and forth. Now, the other part we need to color gray is around his eye. So this little patch of feathers around his eye is also gray. Where else do you see gray in my picture? Do you see gray right here on his back? All right, that's that little patch of feathers that we did. So we're going to color this gray. And I see one more place that's gray. Can you see it? Look, right here. His legs and his feet appear to be gray also. So I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to color his legs and his feet gray. Now, if you are taking a little bit more time to color than I am, then just pause that video anytime you need to, and then push play when you're ready and you're all caught up. Now we can move on to the next color. The next color I see in my scrub jay is blue. Now, I happen to have two colors of blue today, but when I was making my sample picture, I only had one color of blue. So I did him all this color blue, but I happened to find this color in my box of markers. So I'm going to test out this color today and see if I like it. But if you don't have two shades of blue, don't worry, you work with what you have at home. So we're going to start with coloring his top of his head. So please don't color the entire scrub jay blue, because you'll notice parts of him are not blue. They are gray or white. You see the white in his chest and the white down here on his tummy. So I'm trying this light blue, but I am thinking this color's a little light Doesn't quite look like the blue here. I might have to switch over to my darker blue. And I notice right here underneath his chin, he is white. So I'm not going to bring this blue all the way down. I'm going to stop it right about here. Now I'm going to try my dark blue and see if I like that color better. Oh, that's nice too. I don't know. I think I like my dark blue. I think it looks more like him. I think I like that better. What do you think? Next place we're going to color some blue is on this part right here, his long wings. So I'm going to color in blue on the long feathers of his wings. And where else do I see blue? Oh, well, check out the tail. The tail is solid blue. So I'm going to make all those tail feathers blue. Maybe I can experiment now with that light blue and brush a little bit of light blue in between my dark blue. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's not too bad. What do you think of that? Sometimes it's kind of fun to play. It doesn't really show on top of the dark blue, but it does show if I leave a little space in between. All right, now there is one really important part of our scrub jay that you may or may not have noticed, and that is he has a necklace of blue right here. Do you see that necklace of blue? So what we need to do is figure out where we're going to put that necklace on our scrub jay. It's not right here. It kind of swoops down. Do you see that? So let's see. I'll experiment by making a little necklace that comes down, down to there. That kind of looks like a little necklace. What do you think? Now I leave a little patch white and a little patch blue. I'm going to try putting a little light blue around it too. See what that looks like. There. That's looking pretty close. Now our final part is to add little tiny flecks of gray. Do you see that? If I hold that closer, see those little tiny flecks of gray? I'm going to go back to my gray marker right in here. I'm just going to take my marker very quickly. Do you see what I did? And I just went tick, tick, tick like this. I'm going to add just a few of these. Now, the first time I did my scrub jay, I made his whole head blue, and then I noticed that he had some white there. I wasn't really paying attention when I was drawing him the first time. Now, if you made his whole head blue, that's beautiful. It looks great. That's the way I did it the first time. The second time, I actually followed the photo just a little bit more. I'm going to add a few more of these little gray flecks in his tummy, all the way down to the back. I also noticed that he has a little bit more blue right up here. Do you see that? This blue continues underneath his wing. So I might add a little bit more blue here along this part. When you're all finished coloring your scrub jay, the next part to draw or color is our tree. Now, what do you have to color your tree with? Do you have some crayons that you could work with? Or do you have some markers you could work with? So I'm going to see what this looks like. If I take a brown crayon, let me show you what that looks like. And I colored my tree with a brown crayon. I like the way this looks. It's very soft. If I color with a marker, it's a little brighter, a little darker. So you'll have to decide, do you want to do a marker so it's a little bit brighter like this? Or do you want to use a crayon? Or maybe you want to use both. Another trick that you could do while you're working on your tree is you could do two different shades of marker. I used this color, this kind of skin color, flesh color, and then I used a dark brown marker, my brown marker next to it, and that made kind of a pretty color tree also. I kind of like to experiment each time I do it. So I'm going to outline my branches, my brown marker, and then I'm going to go in with my crayon, I think. Just for this time, I'm going to experiment and use my brown crayon. I kind of like that look too. Don't forget to color in between his toes because he is standing on the branch. The branch would be in between his toes as well. Now, when you're all finished coloring your branch, don't forget these skinny branches up here. And then we're going to experiment with our pine needles. For my pine needles, I could use crayon, I could use markers, I could use colored pencils, but you want to use something that you're comfortable flicking your hand with because we're going to be going flip, flip very quickly. So watch me do that. I'm going to start with a light green marker. I have 2 different shades to play with today. So let me start with my light green marker, and I'm going to come right up here and I'm just going to flick my marker like that. And then I'm going to do these ones up here. I'm going to do those all around this side. So that's the first color. Now I'm going to try going in with a darker color green right next to it. Just a few, because the dark green is a little bit bright. I don't want too many of those, but I'm going to try that dark green next to it. Well, I hope you had fun today working on our California scrub jay. I think he turned out beautiful. And if you have scrub jays in your neighborhood, don't forget to put some peanuts out for them. They love peanuts, and you can put them up in the branches of the tree and they will fly down and take those peanuts off and hide them and use them for food in the winter when it gets really cold. I had so much fun working with you today, and I hope you had fun. And I will see you for our next art lesson. And thanks for joining me today. Have a great day.